Hi, I'm Angel. I'm going to bring you with me while I finish up this front brake pad replacement on my 2008 smart car here, my little smarty heart car. I already did, it took me a day just to figure out how to get the tire off because even though they're not locking lug bolts, they were torqued on really tight. So I had to get a breaker bar on them, and of course the first place I went to get a breaker bar was sold out, so that took me a while. Anyway, just sharing that in case it saves you a little time. Also, I will share that I spent some time wrestling the little springs out of the old pad there, but turns out I didn't need to because the new Duralast pads that I got came with the springs already in them. So once I got all that done, it was pretty easy, except for I didn't realize that there is a inner and outer pad, and I put both the inner pads on the passenger side, came over to the driver's side to do it, and couldn't get one of them to slide in there. So then I had to put in an old pad, put the tire back on, go over to the other side, get that one switched out, and now I'm ready to finish up the job. So I'm going to pull that out. I already did most of the work 3 times now, but I was just sharing this part because I thought it would be helpful to share all the little mistakes that can go wrong, like setting your brake pad down with lube on it in the dirt like I just did and getting some dirt on there. I don't want to do that. You don't want to touch the inside of the pad or the rotor with that grease on there. And now hopefully this is going to slide right in there nice and simple. I'm going to show you this. So these springs face up here. The caliper is going to fit on there. The inside one has this little tab here, which is what makes a wretched noise when your pads are getting worn out before they start to damage your rotors. So the one with the tab goes on the inside, and the one without the tab goes on the outside. That'll save you an hour if you're like me and too dorky to figure that out the first time. I'm going to set you down over here and see if I can share with you the wrapping up of this job. Got the caliper sitting over here nice and carefully because it's still attached to the brake line, and I already pushed it back not long ago, and it seems to still be pushed back. But if you need to push it back, then you put an old pad on it so that you don't damage that interior. Let me bring you over here so I can show you a little bit more. So there's that round ring. You're going to push that round ring back with a C-clamp, but in order to not damage it, you can put an old pad in there. This one's already pushed back and seems to have stayed pushed back, which is maybe a little concerning because it's hydraulic and it should have popped back. But I did just push it back not long ago because I zip-zop had to go to the other side. So indeed, this is going to slide right on here. I'm going to make sure these springs are in the right spot. I'm going to push these caliper pin holders back. It's gonna be a little difficult just because what would life be if it wasn't a little challenging, right? So I'm making sure my springs are lined up there and they look good. I'm lining this caliper up with these holes, and I'm gonna hand tighten these bolts in there, which take a little doing to get them lined up right and start to grab, and then they tighten up pretty easily. I've seen some people really goop up those bolts and then have to wipe them off. These ones weren't gooped up. Didn't have to wipe them off, so I'm not gooping them up to put them back. Just making that decision. But this rear one, it's got a little tension on it. I'm hoping that doesn't mean I have a spring in the wrong spot. They look okay though, so I'm gonna move forward. I've got my 13 mil socket on here, and I've got a 17 mil wrench here just to hold. You don't always have to hold this part. I found it didn't need holding on one side and did need holding on the other side. I'm going to switch my wrench here so that I'm tightening and not loosening, and then tighten these up. Just give them a nice firm tighten. I didn't run into any torque wrench specs on these. I have on other cars, but I'm just going to hand tighten them pretty tight. And that looks good. I hope it is good. Those springs look good. it all went back together. Could it be that easy after so much hassle? I'm gonna show you. Getting this tire on is actually easier and trickier than some. It's way lighter than a lot of cars, and of course this time it's gonna go on nice and easy because I'm practiced, but sometimes it's tricky to get those 3 holes lined up because there's not lug bolts sticking out. The lug bolts come off, and instead of sticking out and nuts going on, the bolts go in. So you got to make sure they're lined up properly, and you don't ever want to tighten down one on a tire. You always want to go around and around just to make sure that it's going on straight and you're not kinking anything. This tire is so little, and the area we're dealing with is so small that it would be hard to not notice if you had it misaligned. I'm going to hand tighten. These are 15 mils, which is unusual for tires, but it's a smart car. So again, it's and you can see just noticing how dirty that is. Ideally I would have washed those off, and I'm going to take some cleaner to those in the near future, but for now I am hours behind my work day, so I'm just anxious to get this done and test it out and hope that I have done it correctly. I'm going to tighten these up by hand, and then I'm going to put that tire down and tighten them up the rest of the way. And then I may even go get a torque or a breaker bar. Here we go. I'm going to pull this out so I don't hit the camera. And let my jack down. Zip zap. Remember to tighten that jack back up. You're not a dork like me. And then I'm going to take this and give it a nice torque, a little tighter. Again, I may go either to the tire shop or go get a breaker bar, although they're so difficult to get off that maybe I won't. But you do want your tires on tight. There's only these 3 bolts holding this tire on. Such a little car, though. It's like a fancy motorcycle, I think of it. This car. It's got a little 3-cylinder engine. Anyway, there you go. I'm gonna turn it on and test it out, but just a quick review about the brake pads. I got some cheap Duralast. They were 36 bucks plus tax, plus the little lube packet for $1 something, so it was $42 about total. And I'll try to put a link down there to something on Amazon or AutoZone. And I needed a jack. I kind of needed my pliers just for the jack. I kind of needed my C-clamp just for pushing back that piston when necessary. I used a 15 mil and a 13 mil socket, and a little bit my 17 mil wrench just to hold that. I used a little WD-40, and I had handy my gloves and my rags just in case, although I didn't really need them that much. I think that's it. Let me know if you have any questions or comments or complaints or concerns or compliments in the comment section. As always, I wish you love and lightheartedness, peaceful conflict resolution. I encourage you to try stuff and also hire a professional when you need to. As I just shared, I went through a lot of extra work that would have all been avoided if I'd have just paid somebody else to take care of all of it. Smart cars are a little tricky. Not everybody has the tools for them, and they're actually, even though they're a little tricky on the one side, they're actually super simple to work on the other side. So I'm having fun getting to know this little smarty car, and happy to share the front brake pad job with you to the extent that I can, and fingers crossed that no more screeching for now. Ciao.